Okay, hi. Good, working, mic, yes, cool. Okay, so hi, my name's Dan. I'm gonna talk about JavaScript in space. That's all I got. All right, so Twitter handle's Harden if you want to follow me for bad tweets. I got them. So space, I really like space. I get really geeked out about it, so if I get all giggly during this talk, it's because I think space is so cool. But I'm not really smart enough to be a rocket scientist or an astronaut or something. So if you're interested in space and you want to learn about what can you do? What can just whoever do? So one day at work we were having a hackathon. Who's ever done a hackathon? Yeah, lots of people. Holy crap. Okay, so there's usually a theme, oh, we're gonna work on something with AWS, and we're gonna solve this problem. They didn't set a theme to this one, so we were all right, man, we're gonna do a weather balloon, and we're gonna take this weather balloon and we're gonna get it super high in the air, as high as we can get, and we're gonna take a picture of the Earth, and it's gonna be awesome. Spoilers, it didn't quite go that way, but it was still pretty good. So the deal is, you could just get a weather balloon, and they can go up to 100,000 feet easy. Which isn't technically space, but for the purposes of this talk, it's space, okay? All right, cool. So we just needed to get this thing up there, but more importantly, we need to get it back. So there's a variety of problems with that. Number one, okay, we can strap it to the balloon. That's probably fine. But can you drop a GoPro from 100,000 feet and it's okay? Maybe, I don't know. And then once you've done that, how do you figure out where the hell the thing went? You can't really see a balloon that's 100,000 feet in the air. We tried. So here was kind of a step-by-step process of what we were working on. We found a box, and we cut a hole in it. And shut up. We just okay, so we've got a box, we've got a GoPro, we have a scale. Let's just try and figure this thing out. So we kind of went on Amazon Prime. It was a 3-day hackathon, so we kind of had a day for the idea, a day to order the things, and then a day to actually do the thing. So we were super pressed for time. So someone kindly donated a GoPro that was almost certain to be destroyed. So good for them. We bought a parachute. We bought a weather balloon. They're $20. It's kind of surprising how cheap they are. We bought some paracord, and then we're okay, we'll just slap all these things together, and it'll totally work. We had to do math, which I'm not very good at, but we, whatever. Turns out the really tricky part with making a balloon is there's websites, HabHub is a really good website. You can figure out here's my payload, and then if I put this much helium in the balloon, it's gonna go up this fast, and then the prevailing wind conditions and blah, 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 blah. Oh my God. You just want to figure out where the balloon's going to go. And they go for a really, really long time. So we kind of did our best to figure it out. So we live in Las Vegas, which is in the middle of the Mojave Desert. So there's a lot of nothing, which is good if you want to launch a balloon and not land it in somebody's yard, which was kind of what we were trying to avoid. So we kind of got everything together. We did a little research on how we were going to track it, and we came up with kind of a sort of compromise solution. So like I said, we only had a couple days to do this. For teams that do this regularly or professionally, they use a standard called APRS. Spoilers, this is going to come up later. It's actually an amateur radio thing that you can use to track the balloon. It sends out packets that say, hey, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. We didn't have time to do that because you need to actually have a ham radio license to even use it. So what we did was we bought something called a spot GPS. It's used for climbers. If they're lost on a mountain somewhere, they can push the button, it'll tell you where you are. The spot GPS was $200 or something, and we figured we could probably return it as long as it didn't plummet to the ground and explode. So we're making a lot of assumptions here about will the parachute work? So here's our completed spacecraft because it's going to space. We painted it pink so it'd be really easy to see. We put a nice note on it that said, hey, this isn't a bomb, it's a science experiment. We just wanted it to be really friendly looking, because if it did land in someone's yard, we didn't want the cops to get called. Here's a very scientific diagram of how it works. The gist of it is, It's incredibly not complex. We have a box with some stuff in it, like a GoPro. We've got a line going up to a parachute, and that gets attached to the balloon. So as the balloon rises in the air pressure drops, the balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger. At some point, the balloon pops. That's kind of your really limiting factor, is the balloon gets too big and pops. So the idea was this balloon would go up, it would pop, it would fall, and then the parachute would just happily open up, and then everything would be perfect forever.
Yeah, do it.
Here was our initial drop test. This is like impossible to see, but it'll clear up. Okay, it just fell right to the ground and didn't work at all. We tried like maybe from like the top of the parking garage. That'll be okay, right? It wasn't super. About to drop it. Okay. It took like a second. It was nighttime. You know, we did our best. So it wasn't like incredibly encouraging, but the parachute did open up a little bit, so that's enough, right? Besides, we only have 3 days, so we're going for it. So none of us had a truck, so we rented a truck. We rented a tank of helium. We were going to start with hydrogen. So there's like a helium shortage, right? And we felt like, oh, we don't want to contribute to the helium shortage, and it's probably expensive. So like hydrogen will work super well. So it will. Like hydrogen will absolutely lift your balloon really well. But like it also did that for like the Hindenburg. But you know, so we went to a place where they sell compressed air, and we said, oh, we'd like to get some hydrogen. They're like, yeah, totally, great, whatever. And he's like, did you know that when you open the tank of hydrogen, it immediately combusts, and it's so hot that you can't see it, but if you run your hand through it, it burns all your skin off. And there's just like a guy sitting behind the counter, and he's like, but we like to go to the desert and fill balloons and shoot them, and they explode really good. And we kind of said, well, we're really trying to not explode. Like ideally, we don't want it to explode. So turns out we could get some helium, which was really good. So we threw this sucker into the tank of our truck and took off to the desert. On the way, we were attacked by dust devils because the desert is terrifying. We also went to a really weird McDonald's with this amazing wall art. It's got nothing to do with this, but just take it in for a second. So this is a picture of kind of where we were. This is just an untouched picture. It just looks like that. Absolutely gorgeous Joshua trees, whatever. So we get out there, right? And ideally, you would have some type of regulator that would tell you, like, here's how fast the helium's going, and like then you can figure out like how much is in the balloon. Like maybe you have a little scale to measure the lift. We didn't have any of that, but we did figure that one of the people on our team, Julian, he could kind of hug about this big, and that's probably about how big it needed to be. So we just filled the balloon up until Julian could hug it. We measured it in Julian hugs. So we kind of did. The problem was it was absurdly windy, just ridiculously windy. So this balloon is going crazy, and they are ridiculously thin. We wouldn't have launched if we'd had any time to actually think about this, but we kind of had to. So here's our intrepid team. It's helium, don't worry, it's okay. He didn't actually breathe any in. He might have breathed a little in, don't worry about it. So we're filling this balloon, we're like super excited. We drove out for about an hour and a half. We'd had, at this point, almost 3 days of solid work. We've invested our own money. We got this stupid helium tank. We didn't die to the hydrogen. And this is basically what happened. So it exploded on the ground, like right here. So we got the balloon filled up all the way that it needed to be. The only thing we had to do was let go. The wind blew it onto my face, and then my sunglasses caused it to explode. So it was like over in an instant, like bang, balloons popped, and we're just kind of standing there, like, did this really happen? You know how like rubber gloves, they're covered in like powder? The powder was like it looked like a cartoon, like just powder shoots in our eyes, and we're just like, oh, okay, well, did we get a backup? No, we didn't get a backup balloon. Of course we didn't. That's crazy talk. And so that was like really sad. So, you know, come Monday, we're doing like a demo of our like awesome hackathon. We're like, yeah, we got this balloon, and we were going to send it up there, and we were going to take pictures. You'd be able to see like the curve of the Earth, and like, that's amazing. Where are the pictures? And we said, we got some cool pictures of the ground. So we didn't really want to give up, right? Because we got so close. But outside of the bounds of the hackathon, we actually had time to kind of get our shit together. So we all got ham radio licenses. Hey! I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't think that would be part of like launching a weather balloon, but you know, you kind of get into it. So the four of us like learned what we needed to know about amateur radio and like did a lot of studying and took a test, and so now we've all got call signs and like amateur radios, and we were playing around with ham radios, and this thing just completely spiraled out of control. We forgot to bring the helium tank back, so we lost our deposit. And basically, we were in this thing at this point, like, okay, we've got to do something. So we figured out, like, hey, okay, we've got our ham radio licenses, so we can actually use APRS to track this balloon. So how are we going to do that? Enter Project ConPollo. That's a very technical name. Our friend Pavel, who is also part of the team, created this. It's out there on GitHub. It's just Makanai. It's his username, /ConPollo. What this guy is a little library that runs on a Raspberry Pi and gathers data and handles sending the APRS signal and all that good stuff. Totally custom, totally awesome. So it took us forever to like actually get all of this together, but at this point we're feeling kind of good. Like, hey, we're actually going to do this the right way, as opposed to just kind of throwing stuff together for a hackathon. Here's a picture of the payload. KG7OIX is Pavel's call sign. I'm KG7OIF now. Deshaun out there also has one. Like I said, we didn't expect to end this project with ham radio licenses, but you know, whatever. You can see the Raspberry Pi there, as well as an array of sensors. We took like temperature data, humidity, that kind of thing. So we, you know, after quite a lot of false starts, it took like a year for us to actually get everybody on the same page. But one day we decided, like, let's just do it. So all of us got together, we met up, and we just kind of hacked and put it together. And we said, okay, let's launch this thing. Here's a picture of the new and improved spacecraft. We made it really shiny, which is not only cool because it's shiny, it's really good because airplanes' radars can see that better. We didn't think about that before, so it may be a good thing that we didn't like launch in the air. If you're curious, if your payload's under like 4 pounds, you don't have to tell the FAA, which is cool, because I don't know if they would have loved this or not. But so we've got our cool spacecraft, we've got our hardware, it's running JavaScript. Awesome. So we head out to the desert. We've actually got pictures this time. We drove out to approximately the middle of nowhere, and we got our helium tank that we now own. Whatever. We got another thing we figured was that if we had like a sheet, maybe we could hold the balloon down. It wouldn't go so crazy. So we just kind of got all of us together and started inflating this thing, and we still didn't really have a means of measuring how big it needed to be, so we just tried to remember how big Julian can hug, and just sort of went with that. Ended up, you can see Ty down here laying under the balloon trying to tie the thing together. You can see our parachute just kind of hanging there. Despite our best efforts and how professional we were feeling, we were totally still hacking this. Ham radio licenses or not. So we inflated it to where we thought it needed to be. We tied it down, and we just let it go. And it actually took off and didn't explode in our faces this time. Here it is in flight, and it actually took off. So we were kind of just stunned. You can look at this stupid expression on my face. Like, that's the look of a man who had had a balloon explode in his face before and can't believe that it's off the ground. Matthew had also been there for the original and was equally stunned. Ty had not, and he just looks like he's walking away, like, from an explosion. Like, he's like the coolest guy ever in this picture, and we're just like, what? So anyway, we calculated that, I'll leave that up for a minute. We calculated that this balloon was going to take, like, I forget, like an hour or two to actually go up and land. And so we just kind of had to kill time. So, let me tell you about this. So there's a website called aprs.fi. If you are transmitting APRS signals using amateur radio, you can just type in your call sign and you can see where the thing is. That was the other amazing thing, is that that actually worked. So we could see this balloon overlaid on Google Maps. We accidentally entered the wrong character code, and it's labeled as a house instead of a balloon. So on the map, there was this house just kind of like floating through the air, like up. So we were just kind of watching this thing for an hour or whatever. So like we took off to In-N-Out because, I don't know, what else are you going to do? Like, once we let go, there was literally nothing we could do, and it was just kind of out there. What was cool was a couple of us had tweeted out the link to follow the thing with the radio tracker, and we had a few people who had seen that on Twitter or on Facebook and whatever who were keeping way better tabs than we were. So we're just sitting there like eating burgers, just kind of whatever. And they're like, hey, I think it's falling. And sure enough, we looked at the altitude, and the number had stopped getting bigger, and it started getting a lot smaller, faster. So we hopped back in the truck and took off after it. So what ended up happening was this thing flew for miles and miles and miles. I'll show you a map in a little bit. And it landed like way out in the middle of nowhere by a dry lake bed. If you noticed, I don't know if you can see them on the projector, there's a lot of power lines. And like a balloon with lots of cables and power lines are like a super bad combination. So we were kind of terrified that this thing was like out there, burst into flames. Because the thing is, we'd lost a connection to it. So this thing's flying in the air and it's sending out radio waves, right? But once it gets down to kind of a certain altitude, it can't see any more radio towers. So we could only track it to about 4,000 feet. And then it's just kind of, where did it go? So we just drove around the desert to where we kind of thought it was. We found all sorts of cool things out there, like some weird trash, and like a cool cactus, and some tarantulas, but we didn't find the balloon. So we walked around until the sun went down. We were out there for probably 2 or 3 hours just wandering around the desert looking for this stupid balloon, and we couldn't find it. So I'm having flashbacks about like the last balloon that ended super well. And I'm like, no, we got so close. Like we actually sent this thing up, and now it's just out there somewhere. So we went back home the next day and kind of did a little math, and we could actually analyze the data, and we kind of figured out like, well, maybe looking at this map, it maybe landed over here-ish, kind of. So the next day, Pavel went out and just sort of wandered around the desert. You can see his tracks here. He's just kind of doing this random walk. And we found the balloon! We actually friggin' found it. Look how happy he is. We lost it. But then the thing is, okay, did it actually work, software-wise? Did we actually take that cool picture of the Earth? We totally took a cool picture of the Earth. That's the friggin' Earth. So I know it's a grainy 640 by 480 picture, but F it, that's a real thing. That's the radio antenna hanging down. We didn't position it in a very smart place compared to where the camera was. So that was really cool. That was enough for me, but Pavel kind of helped take it to the next level. So we actually had a video, and because we had this video, we also had the APRS data, and we also had the data that was gathered by the onboard software. So using that, we were able to overlay the video with where it was on Google Maps. So this is available. I'll send out the link. And if you get motion sick, maybe don't watch right now. So this is the balloon taking off. It took off really fast, really, really horrifyingly fast. And I'll kind of skip forward to some interesting parts. But the cool thing is you can kind of see how long it's been, the temperature we were getting, what the altitude is, which way we're facing. So you can see here we're at about 7,000 feet. Things are already kind of tiny. Fast forward a little bit more, 12 minutes in. It's starting to look a lot like the Google map. We're approaching 25,000 feet. The temperature is 31 degrees Fahrenheit. We can go even further. We're around 60,000 feet. And you can see on the map kind of where this thing is going. And it's just really cool to actually be able to, at least I think it's cool, to see the video that this thing took. So it got to, here's 80,000 feet, which is ridiculously high. It's dropped to negative 27 degrees Fahrenheit. That's Las Vegas right there, that kind of area right here. It doesn't look very cool from this high up, but this is actually Las Vegas. And we can take the Google map here and kind of scroll over, and you can kind of match up what this is next to what the Google map is seeing. So we got to 81,000 feet. We ended up past 90,000. We got to almost exactly 100,000 feet, which we were trying for like 90 or 95, and we managed to completely luck out. So that's a really good view of Las Vegas. If you could see that long, that kind of long road in the middle is the Strip. But yeah, kind of neat. We faced the camera facing down. It would have been cooler if we'd had it like at an angle, but again, we're not perfect at this. So once we get to right about 100,000 feet, the balloon pops and it starts just freaking out. We had absolutely no stabilization or any thought into that, and so this thing is just kind of like flopping around like this and trying to take video. This is kind of where I thought that like a line would break and the thing would just plummet to the earth, but it held on. So you can see that it actually fell at not terminal velocity, which means the parachute popped. That was kind of the other really exciting part, is that it wasn't just plummeting to the earth. It was plummeting in a nice controlled manner. Oh, that's cool. That's a giant solar array out in the middle of the desert. I had no idea that was there. It's like a mile or 2 miles long. Crazy. I was kind of wondering if we were going to like fly over Area 51 or something and like get in trouble, but it appears to be okay. So this thing, you can see it falling. I'm just going to step through this a little bit. It's actually kind of cool to watch it. Here's a really neat and terrifying part. So let me scroll back just a teeny bit. So you can see Yankat right here. Let me go to the map view because it's a little more obvious. So you see this right here? Those are mountains. And you see this right here? That's the Colorado River. When we saw that the balloon was heading into the mountains, and then if it got past the mountains into the freaking river, that's like the worst case scenario. Because everything before that is a nice flat area. We didn't want to have to hike too much. And then just by pure freaking luck, it caught a gust of wind and turned the opposite direction. If that hadn't happened, we were so screwed. So the camera cut off right before it hit the ground, but it just kind of ended up there in the desert. So you can see its kind of final resting place right here. And I'll zoom out a little so you can see kind of how far it went. So the scale here is, well, I don't see a scale, but it went a long way. Like way longer than we kind of thought it would. But this is out there at makanai.net/JSConf player. Like I said, I'll tweet it out or something. But if you want to play around with it. We've also opened up a repo with kind of issues and the data that we got from this thing. So we're just kind of playing around with it and seeing what we could do better next time, because now that we've actually succeeded at it, we want to do it even better. So besides all like the technical part and kind of like how cool it felt, the best part of this was just like hopping in the truck and driving out to the desert and like having a good time. If this had just been like, we're working on a project and yes, we did the project and whatever, it would have been cool, but it genuinely felt like an adventure. There's something about like writing your code and working on your thing and then going out there and like making terrible mistakes and like having stuff explode in your face that's like super exciting. I work in e-commerce, so that doesn't usually happen. It's only like metaphorical things that explode in my face. So this was really fun. I guess if there's one thing that I would make kind of the summary of this talk is to like get out there and have an adventure and try to launch a thing into space, even though you're absolutely not qualified to do that. But that's about it. I can't see the clock, but that's the gist of it. So thanks.